From claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt.
EWTN Radio presents The Miracle Hunter with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. People who know me know I love talking about the saints, and would you believe that there's another O'Neill out there, Brian O'Neill, who also has focused on the saints over the years, and he's got a brand new project about the tombs of the saints called Saint Tombs. We'll be excited to talk to him later in the show. And of course, Our Lady of Lourdes is perhaps one of the biggest miraculous feast days, you might say, in our general Roman calendar. And coming right up on February 11th is a celebration of that great occasion, the first apparition of Our Lady of Lourdes to St. Bernadette's Soubirous there in France. And joining us today, we'll be checking in with Elizabeth Ficcoceli, one of the experts on Lourdes. She'll be telling us all about the incredible happenings there that happened so many years ago. And check out my series, They Might Be Saints, which airs on EWTN on Tuesday, February 10th. We've got the episode on Sister Marie de Montgrandse. It's the fascinating story of Sister Marie de Montgrandse, and I follow her extraordinary efforts to locate the House of Mary, and as she travels to Ephesus, Turkey, to bring this treasure to the Catholic Church. And that's They Might Be Saints, Sister Marie de Montgrandse, which airs on February 10th on Tuesday. And check out my other series, Explore with the Miracle Hunter, this week on Wednesday, February 11th. We look at the episode in Assisi, the Italian city there of Assisi, gave rise to history's most celebrated saints, two of them anyway, and that is St. Francis and St. Clare. I follow the trail of St. Francis, the first person to bear the wounds of Christ, the stigmata, and also St. Clare, his wonder-working follower. So check that one out on Wednesday, February 11th on EWTN television. And for those people who missed the chance to watch, you can always go to On Demand on EWTN, and if you just Google On Demand Miracle Hunter EWTN, or just go to explorewiththemiraclehunter.com, it takes you right there, and you can watch any of the episodes anytime you want. Later in the show, we're going to be looking at the Might Be Saint of the Day. For today, we've got Pope Blessed Pius IX. In the 365 Days with Mary project, we look at the Most Holy Virgin Mary of the Gate, from Guastalla in Italy in the year 1693. And the question of the week, how is it possible that the Vatican approves sainthood miracles but cannot approve other miracles like apparitions of Mary? That's a hard question. I'll try to answer that one later in the show. And the miracle of the day, around February 7th in the year 1901, St. Gemma Galgani experienced the stigmata. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the miracle news. We do this every week where we talk about the miracles happening around the world and those things that relate to miracles. And last week we touched on this already, and we'll continue this conversation. There have been two new miracles attributed to Saint Charbel already in 2026, one in the United States and one in Lebanon. And they've been reported since the beginning of 2026. It's truly amazing that he's been associated with as many as 30,000 reported miracles. And of course, these don't necessarily go through the full scrutiny that we see at Lourdes or in canonization processes, but these are all reports of people having some kind of miraculous turnaround that they attribute to this Lebanese Maronite monk and priest. And he lived in a hermitage in the mountains of Lebanon, and he went to hospital rooms across the continents. His intercession continues to reach those in need, transcending borders, cultures, and generations, says this article on the National Catholic Register. And we talked last week about the healing of Georgianne Walker from South Bend, Indiana, that happened on January 17th. But there was another recovery without medical explanation in Lebanon. And this was recounted by Raka Charbel, and she's not related to St. Charbel, but has the same name, born in 1987 in Jazin, a mountain town in South Lebanon. And she was admitted to the hospital on October 1st, 2025, after experiencing severe back pain. An MRI scan conducted under the supervision of her treating physician, this Dr. Atiya. He was a specialist in neurosurgery and vascular surgery. He revealed a tumor on the spinal column, identified as a meningioma, measuring over 2 centimeters in length and 0.3 centimeters in thickness. And according to her physician, the tumor was unresponsive to medication and it posed a risk to the spinal nerves and blood vessels and could only be treated through surgical removal. A follow-up MRI was scheduled 3 months later to monitor its progression, and a provisional hospital admission date of January 7, 2026 was set should surgery be needed. And Rocca reported that on the night of January 6th, the night before the surgery, a picture of St. Charbel was hanging above her bed. She said she placed her hand on the image and asked for healing before falling asleep. And on the morning of January 7th, she returned to the hospital for this repeat MRI, and she was informed that the examination would take approximately 45 minutes and could take longer if needed. The scan was completed in about 20 minutes and revealed an unexpected finding, that the tumor had completely disappeared. And according to Rocca, her doctor told her that there was no medical explanation for this disappearance and that such a tumor could not vanish without surgical intervention. And on January 17th, Rocca Charbel made a Thanksgiving visit to the monastery of St. Maron in Anaya, where she officially registered the healing and submitted the relevant medical reports. And she later stated that the experience marked a turning point in her life and deepened her faith. And so these are just one of many miracles attributed to this great saint who died in 1898 and beatified by Paul VI in 1965 and canonized in 1977. And so many miracles are attributed to St. Charbel. When people ask who's the greatest miracle worker, it's hard to get around St. Charbel. I think he might be number one, and that is today's news story. You can check that out. I posted it to the Miracle Hunter show page on the Facebook feed of the Miracle Hunter. This week, we're taking a look at Catholic pub trivia. And last week we asked the question, was the oldest formally investigated and approved Marian apparition? And the answer is Our Lady of Guadalupe in 1531. And for those people who might point out that it happened before 1545 to 1571, which was when the Council of Trent finalized the investigative process for formally investigating and approving Marian apparitions and other miracles. And it's true, but those investigations continued well into the 1700s, actually, to look at Our Lady of Guadalupe and the authenticity of that claim. So it occurred before the formal process existed, but it was approved after the formal process existed. And so you'll notice that the question asked, what is the oldest apparition? So the answer is Our Lady of Guadalupe. And thanks for everybody who wrote in on that one. And for this week's question, we have a special prize that we're giving out. This is a gift that's being given to us by the makers of the film Triumph of the Heart. This Triumph of the Heart film came out last year, and it was an amazing portrayal of the final 2 weeks of St. Maximilian Kolbe's life when he volunteered to share a starvation bunker in Auschwitz with 9 condemned men. And it's incredible watching these dying prisoners forge a bond and find hope and spiritual strength that is redemptive for all of them. So the winner of this week's Catholic Pub Trivia will be winning a copy of the DVD Triumph of the Heart about the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe. And so this question relates to saints, and we're talking about American saints today. Who was the first saint to die and be buried on American soil? That question again, we are talking about American saints today, so who was the first saint to die and be buried on American soil? If you think you know that answer, we'll win the prize, this Triumph of the Heart DVD given to us by the makers of that film. And you will be given this prize. And send me an email to questions@miraclehunter.com, and the fastest respondent is going to win that prize. And answers and winners will be posted on the show page on miraclehunter.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Brian O'Neill about the tombs of the saints. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill on the Miracle Hunter. Well, people who tune into this show know how much I love the saints and future saints, and I talk about them a lot. And I try to, anytime I'm in a foreign country, I always try to find the tombs of the great saints. And strangely enough, there's somebody else with the same last name as mine, more or less. His name is Brian O'Neill. He spells it a little bit differently, but he is also into the saints. And I've followed his work for many years, and I know that he's put a special emphasis in his life on the lives of the saints. And he's got a brand new project that's out. It's called Saints' Tombs, and it finds the tombs of the saints in various countries around the world. So if you're traveling and you're looking to make a pilgrimage to your favorite saint or just find out what saint is in a country, you can go to this website, saintstombs.com, in order to search and find out more. We welcome to the program today, Brian O'Neill.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on, Michael. It's a real pleasure and honor.
Yeah, it's great to finally connect with you. I've known of your work for so many years, and it's finally great to talk to you. And you, we don't spell our last names the same, but it's pretty close to everyone's ear anyway. But it's a great project that you've undertaken, Saints' Tombs. I think a lot of people are kind of interested when they go to a country. What saints are there and how they might find them? What inspired you to put together this website, saintstombs.com?
It's the same with you, Michael. I was in foreign countries, namely Italy, and I would visit some place. I would pray at a shrine or something in that place, and I would get home and I would do some research on that church or shrine, and I would find that they had 5 saints buried in them. And I just thought, what on earth? How can we? This is frustrating to me. I don't want people to have the same experience. But where I did have the experience of praying at saints' tombs, it was so edifying and so such an avenue of grace that I wanted to be able to give people the opportunity, if they were driving down the road someplace, and say, well, let's see if the sign for Smithville is up ahead. Let's see if there's any shrines or holy places or saints' tombs in Smithville. And so in 2003, I started researching this and gathering the information, and it was, it's taken a long time. I'm still not finished. I still have a lot of work to do on servants of God and venerables and that sort of thing. And I'm adding shrines and other holy places to the list. But now it's up on the web. The website is saintstombs.com. saintstombs.com.
Wonderful.
And there you click on saints, and it'll give you, ask you which region you want to go to. So for North America, that includes Canada and the U.S. If you want to see what's in Turkey, because there were lots of saints in Turkey before the Islamic conquest, you can go to Eastern Europe, drop down to Turkey, click on that and see it. North America is about to get, when I first uploaded the material for North America, it was 22 pages, and now it's up to 40 pages. So I'm going to be, and that hasn't been uploaded yet, but I am going to be doing that shortly, and that way people here in the U.S. or wherever can take a look and see that in Las Cruces, New Mexico, they've got the shrine to and devotion to Our Lady of Health. And so, just things like that.
Yeah, it's a well laid out website. I'm on the website right now as we're talking. It's called saintstombs.com. And if you click on this tab, Explore, then it gives you this drop-down menu. You can select the region or the country in places like Africa, Asia, Austria, Belgium, Britain, Eastern Europe, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, North America, Oceania, Portugal, Scandinavia, Spain, Switzerland. And then, as Brian was mentioning, if you drill down into North America, it lets you choose the United States or in Canada, and then you can go down further. And it breaks it down to all these places and tells you exactly where these various people are buried. And what's your great hope for people who are interested in the saints or are just curious about what's in their area? What's your hope for how this tool, Saints' Tombs, can help people grow in their connection to the saints?
Well, my hope is that they will go have an experience of grace there, and that will lead them through the saints closer, and their example closer to Jesus Christ, and thus lead them closer to heaven. We want as my friend and former EWTN colleague Tom Nash likes to say, we should be hell-bent on heaven. And, that's what I'm really hoping people get out of this. And, it's not just, there are different devotions to Our Lady. So there are shrines to Our Lady that are going to be up on this. Or in the Bering Sea, there is a 900-pound bronze statue on a 700-foot cliff of our Lord, and it's Christ the King statue. So, it's up in Alaska, and, maybe people would take a pilgrimage there. Who knows? But at least now they know where these places are, and, they can plan their trip around it.
Wonderful. We're talking today with Brian O'Neill, who's written numerous things over the years on the saints, and now he's got a new project, saintstombs.com, for people to locate the tombs of saints all over the world. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Brian. You've got so many listed on this website. What's your favorite saint tomb to go and visit or pray at?
There's in Rome, there is in the Church of Sant'Agostino, there's a church of, I've got to look up his name now. You did put me on the spot. But he, his last name is Minocchio, and he was a teacher and a priest and a very, very devoted to Our Lady, and he would bring people into that devotion with great fervor. And if you were just walking around the church, Michael, you would not see, you wouldn't necessarily see his tomb. His tomb is a little black square on the pavement of Sant'Agostino, which is also our good friend Saint Monica is, and it's also where it's a great shrine to Our Lady of it's called Madonna della Pasta. It means basically Our Lady of Childbirth. And women go there, and they will pray to get pregnant. And some friends of mine who were not able to conceive after 7 years of marriage prayed before this shrine, and they conceived very quickly thereafter.
Wonderful. Yeah, truly amazing. I think there are so many great stories of people praying at the tombs of saints. I've interviewed people who prayed at the tomb of Saint Charbel, for example, and healing from blindness. And there are other great miracles associated with him, as there are with many saints all around the world. So this is kind of from a miracle hunter point of view. This is such a great thing to connect with the saints this way. And I think that when you travel around the world, I think this is kind of a nice resource for people. I think people always like to visit the shrines and places of grace that might be along their path when they're on vacation or when they're on pilgrimage. So I think that this is such a good tool for people. What's your outlook for this project? I assume that the answer is something like you're going to keep adding as many saints as you come across, and you're going to keep growing it and growing it. But what's your overall plan for this work, the saintstomb.com website?
It's my overall plan is just to keep it going. There may be some other features added to it, like, for instance, the Churches of Rome. I wrote this book on the Churches of Rome, but the thing is, it's too big to get published. And so maybe I'll just put that up on this website so that people have access to it. My dream is that people will, there are some places where there are, on the website, where there are question marks. And those question marks mean either that the person was buried in that city, but we don't know where their tomb is, or they died in that city, but we don't know if they're buried there. And so my hope is that people through the contact page will get in touch with me and say, oh, Saint Servius is actually buried in the Church of San Marco or whatever. And, that sort of thing. So I hope it becomes this interactive situation that people will, that I'll help people get to certain places, but they'll help me by, giving some information back and that sort of thing. Or even tell me about some place that I didn't know about and that had been totally off of my radar. That would be great. So, I just want this, there are 1.4 billion Catholics when in the world, and when those 1.4 billion Catholics know and use this site, then I'll be satisfied.
Well, that is quite a goal, and we can hope and pray for that. And while I've got you on here, I'm going to ask you kind of a tricky question that maybe I don't know the answer to, and you can let me know what your thoughts on this. I know that people like praying with relics of saints, and they have these little reliquaries where they can almost touch the bones of the saint or whatever the fabric is, and they hold it in their hands. Perhaps they bless their body part that needs the healing, or they're in the presence of the relic and they're holding it. Is there any difference for Catholics who venerate the relics of a saint and those who go and touch the tomb of the saint? Is there any difference there?
No, because I don't think so. I'm not a theologian, but I would think that, there would be the ability to, we're going, for instance, if you go to the tomb of St. Paul in Rome, then, or Blessed Solanus Casey in Detroit, and you're praying before them for their intercession, or you have the relic in front of you and you're praying for their intercession. I don't see where there's a big difference. In fact, on some of the churches, it'll note relic only or relics only, that they're not buried there. But people go and pray in front of these relics or get blessed by a priest with these relics, and they obtain the healing that they need, whether it be spiritual or physical. You hear reports of the relics of someone of some saint, and they're pressed to the chest of a person in a hospital and they're healed. So I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's just a curiosity question, as long as I had you on as an expert on these saints' tombs. And so I encourage people to check out this website, saintstombs.com, to whether you're traveling or you're trying to plan your trip, or you're in a country already and you want to just find out what saints are near you. I think it's a great resource for people to find out more And again, for people who want to learn about your work, Brian O'Neill, and your projects and what you have going on, do you have a website or other place that you can direct people to find out more about you and your work?
I have a Facebook page called 39 New Saints You Should Know. And on there, I will frequently post things about the saints, keep people informed about them, and that sort of thing. And, when I have a new article about a saint or saints, then I can put those, I'll link to those on 39 New Saints You Should Know Facebook page. Kind of long, but that was the title of my first book, and and so now it goes hand in hand with saintstombs.com, and I hope people will put both to good use.
Wonderful. Well, we're so grateful to you, Brian O'Neill. It's so nice to meet you finally, Brian, and congratulations on your great work about saints. And thank you for putting together this great resource, saintstombs.com. And thank you for joining with us on today's program.
It's been my honor. Thank you, Michael.
God bless. That was Brian O'Neill. Check out his new project. It's called saintstombs.com. Like I say, if you're traveling in a foreign country or you're making plans to travel in a foreign country and you'd love to visit the sites of your favorite saints, where they're buried and where their relics are, this is such a great resource. I encourage people to check this one out. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at the question of the week. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Hey, I love getting your questions. People write in from around the world with questions about miracles happening in today's world and those that have happened centuries ago. And I love getting your email questions. But even more, I love answering your questions in person. Just this past weekend, I was actually in Baton Rouge in Louisiana. It was quite a travel experience to get there, but once I got there, it was truly amazing to be there with the Mercedarian sisters at their retreat center, and it was a lot of fun to give 3 talks there, and I got so many good questions in person. And one of the questions I got while I was there, and for people who want to have me speak at their parish or their event, you can go to my website and you can go to miraclehunter.com and click on the contact tab and send me a message that way. But one of the questions that popped up that I thought was such a good one, and I wanted to repeat on this radio show, was this question: Dear Miracle Hunter, how is it possible that the Vatican approves sainthood miracles but cannot approve other miracles like apparitions of Mary? Thank you, Mary. And thanks, Mary, for that question. And it was such a good one. I remember this from the talk, and it seems a little bit inconsistent in some ways, right? Because we have the Catholic Church, who has maybe 2 bodies that approve of miracles, one being the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, where 2 miracles are used to boost somebody from servant of God to venerable to blessed and then to saint. 2 miracles are required, and those require the full investigation of the medical commission to make sure that there's no natural explanation for that miracle and that there was a case of direct intercession. So you have those kinds of miracles. And then if you hop over to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, traditionally that's the place where they look at Marian apparitions and Eucharistic miracles and anything else along those lines. They no longer approve miracles, or the highest level of recognition or judgment they give is nihil obstat, means nothing stands in the way. There's no problem with it. So they don't say it's supernatural. They don't say that this is the work of God. They just say that there's nothing that's a problem with it. So you have 2 different dicasteries, 2 different approaches to miracles. And how could this be both in the Vatican? And it's a good question, Mary. I don't know the real answer to this. And someday perhaps one side or the other will come around to either recognizing that miracles do happen or saying we don't need miracles anymore. But as of right now, there are two different outlooks in the Vatican when we consider what miracles are approved and how they can be embraced by the faithful. So quite an interesting question, Mary. Thank you so much. And if you have a question for the Miracle Hunter, you can send me a question to questions@miraclehunter.com, and maybe I'll be answering your question on the air next week. Let's take a look at the 365 Days with Mary project. We do this every week where we look at the Marian devotion of the day as it lines up exactly to the day's date. You all know Fatima, May 13th, or Guadalupe, December 12th, or Lourdes, February 11th, or believe it or not, there on each and every day of the calendar year, there's a different other Marian devotion for each and every day from somewhere in the world. And we're talking about feast days and the anniversary of miracles or other big celebrations or the building of a basilica in the site. Some way, somewhere, everywhere, Mary is honored around the world. And so for today's day, we've got the Most Holy Virgin of the Gate from Guastalla in Italy in the year 1693. And the story goes that a replica of the famous icon of Rome was installed in St. Francis's Church in Port-au-Prince and processed to a hill above the city suffering from a small pox epidemic. On February 5th, 1882, the date of the procession was the end of the epidemic. In 2007, the 125th anniversary of her miraculous intervention was celebrated on February 5th. The National Shrine of Our Lady of Perpetual Help was the church in Bel Air as designated by the Haitians Catholic Bishops' Conference, but was destroyed in 2010, the earthquake then. On December 8, 2010, the bishops of Haiti renewed the country's consecration to her, and Our Lady of Perpetual Help became the official patroness of Haiti in 1942, and her feast day is celebrated on June 27th. And that is the feast day for today, the Most Holy Virgin Mary of the Gate. For more information on this fascinating devotion, or any of the hundreds of other Marian devotions from around the world, you can go to the website, 365dayswithmary.com. You can pick up the book or download the free app, 365 Days with Mary, available on the iOS App Store. Let's take a look at the miracle of the day. We do this every week where we try to find a miracle that occurred on the day's date in some year in Christian history. And today's date relates to St. Gemma Galgani, the mystic and stigmatic. And around February 7th, 1901, St. Gemma Galgani experienced the onset of a renewed passion-related mystical phenomena described by her spiritual directors as the torment of scourging. And contemporary accounts indicate that this episode involved intense physical suffering associated with her established stigmatic experiences. And this phenomena occurred for several days and is recorded as having ceased on February 12, 1901. In testimony from her confessor and witnesses places this event within a clearly defined time in early February, and the dating of this episode is based on documented observations rather than later devotional tradition. And that is the stigmata of St. Gemma Galgani, which occurred in 1901. When I was in Italy this past year, I was able to go to Lucca, where the shrine of St. Gemma is located, and I was able to see where she was buried and see that shrine there. And we filmed an episode of Explore with the Miracle Hunter, which, with all things considered, hopefully will be out in the next year or so. And that's today's Miracle of the Day, the Stigmata of St. Gemma Galgani. Let's take a look at the sainthood news. We do this every week where we talk about how people are moving along the path to sainthood, from servant of God to blessed, to venerable, to blessed, and then to saint. And one that I'm personally very excited about relates to the seer or visionary, as you might say, of Our Lady of Champion. She is now a servant of God. And so the Wisconsin bishops opened the cause on Adele Bryce's 195th birthday. That was this past week. And there are three components of the diocesan investigative phase of the canonization process. And on January 30th, what would have been her 195th birthday, Adele Bryce was declared a servant of God, and that's the official opening of her canonization and the result of devotion of the faithful, and it signals the beginning of the diocesan phase. Now, Adele, she lived from 1831 to 1896, and she was a Belgian immigrant to Wisconsin, and she was the only visionary to witness these apparitions of Mary, Our Lady of Champion, in 1859, and she spent her life teaching catechism to children and devoted to the mission Mary gave her, to teach people what they needed to know for their salvation. When he opened this cause, Bishop David Ricken explained, quote, "We believe and I declare worthy that Mary, the Queen of Heaven, appeared to Adele and shared her wishes for her to educate the children in this wild country, and she spent her whole life fulfilling that mission," end quote. And so after the Vespers with the faithful at St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Cathedral in Green Bay, Bishop Ricken explained during his 18 years in the diocese he had heard countless stories of the life and virtues of Adele, and it is for this reason that he was motivated to further a study of Adele's life and open the cause for canonization. In referring to his request for people to submit testimonies about Adele at the end of 2025, the bishop said, "I have received dozens of stories since December 28th that I released the edict that can confirm my conviction to open this cause." And Father John Girardi is serving as the Episcopal delegate for Adele's cause as it enters the diocesan phase, and he explained that a tribunal will be formed during this phase, and it will basically consist of three parts. The Historical Commission, this is comprised of individuals who are experts in history, who will study documents and places that Adele Bryce lived, documents her birth, documents of her baptism, things that she wrote, and we will investigate that and paint a picture of Adele Bryce in a particular time and place here in northeastern Wisconsin in the 1800s. I'm honored to be a part of that historical commission. And then there's the Theological Commission, and the quote says, "These theologians who are trained in the Church's teachings will investigate from a theological perspective, a religious perspective, the life of Adele Bryce, how she followed the way of the Lord, and lived a life of heroic virtue." And in the interviews and testimonies, of course, there will be all the people who knew Adele have since moved on, and it's more difficult these days to interview in a historic cause. But people who have had these involvements with Adele, spiritual speaking, might be interviewed and testimonies be given. And the great takeaway from all of this, the rector of the Shrine of Our Lady of Champion says that anybody could be a saint. And so Adele is this great example for us as we celebrate and move forward with this announcement of her being a servant of God, and God willing, over the years she will move from servant of God to venerable, to blessed, and then to saint. And so that is the news for today related to sainthood. You can find that article that I posted on the Facebook page of The Miracle Hunter. And those people interested in They Might Be Saints, my project about those people on the path to sainthood, might be interested to know the Might Be Saint of the day. And for today, we've got Blessed Pius IX. He was born as Giovanni Maria Mastai Ferretti. And of course, he's Italian. And he was the son of Girolamo Ferretti and Caterina Solzazzi, local nobles, and the family's ninth child. He was frail, intelligent, and pious as a boy, who suffered from epilepsy when he was young, and he was educated at the PRS College in Volterra in Italy through 1809, and he studied in Rome, and due to political disturbances in the city, he returned and asked for admission to the Papal Noble Guard, but was turned down due to his epilepsy. And he studied theology at the seminary, and during which his epilepsy disappeared, and he was ordained in 1819 in Rome, and became a spiritual director of the orphan asylum of Tata Giovanni in Rome, and he was the auditor and apostolic delegation to Chile from 1823 to 25. He was the canon of San Maria in Rome. He was the director of San Michele Hospital in Rome. He was chosen Archbishop of Spoleto in 1827 and named assistant at the pontifical throne in 1827. And he was chosen the 255th Pope in the conclave of 1846. And his cause for beatification was one of the longest and most difficult in church history. It began under Pius X in 1907 and was relaunched by Benedict XV, and later by Pius XI, and then by Pius XII in 1954. And the degree of heroic virtue was finally promulgated by the Congregation for the Causes of Saints in 1985, allowing his proclamation as venerable. Among Pius IX's most outstanding virtues were his unconditional love for the Church, his charity, and his high regard for the priesthood and for missionaries. And the miracle attributed to him, verified by the Medical Commission on January 15, 1986, and proclaimed definitive in December 1999, was the inexplicable cure of a French nun. And again, he was born in Seraglio in Italy in 1792, and he died of natural causes on February 7th in 1878, and he's buried in the Basilica of San Lorenzo fuori la Mura in Rome. And Pope John Paul II issued his decree on heroic virtues in 1985, and also canonized him in the year 2000 in St. Peter's Square in Rome, in Italy. And that is today's Might Be Saint of the Day, Pope Blessed Pius IX, with one more miracle. He will be named Saint Pius IX. For those people who are interested in They Might Be Saints, you can pick up my book, They Might Be Saints, which is available at ewtnrc.com, or you can watch the television series They Might Be Saints, which airs this one airs on February 10th on Tuesday, and that is the story of Sister Marie de Mondac-Grance. And it's a fascinating story. We follow her extraordinary efforts to locate the House of Mary as she travels to Ephesus, Turkey, to bring this treasure home to the Catholic Church. And that's They Might Be Saints, Sister Marie de Mondac-Grance, airing on Tuesday, February 10th. And for those people who can't tune in at that time but would like to watch anyway, you can go to theymightbesaints.com and go to the on-demand page, and there you can watch any of the episodes for free anytime you want. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Elizabeth Ficcoceli, author of Lourdes, Font of Faith, Hope, and Charity, about the big feast day coming up on February 11th. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. I think people think about miracles, the big kind anyways, those that potentially could get investigated by Rome, as happening all around the world. And miracles do happen every day and everywhere, but the kind that get investigated in Rome are of two sorts normally, or they're investigated fully, I should say, of two sorts. One in Rome, we talk about those healing miracles that are often used as intercessory miracles for the canonization of saints. And the other place in the world, the only other place, as it turns out, is at Lourdes in France, on the heels of that 1858 Marian apparition, 18 visions experienced by Saint Bernadette Soubirous, the 14-year-old French girl, who dug in the ground and water emanated, and people began to wash in the water. And over the years, they've set up a medical commission and have looked at thousands and thousands of cures, and some of which have been validated as without medical explanation. And both places use what we call the Lambertini criteria, which dates back some centuries, actually. And it talks about how the church will look at these cases and say that there's nothing that they can do to explain using scientific or natural explanation for what's going on. And we're so excited today to be joined by a true expert on Lourdes, and that is Elizabeth Ficcoceli. Fans of this show know that she's been on the show many times, and we love to talk to her about Lourdes. And you may have tuned in last year for a program, Miracles of Lourdes, where she was interviewed as one of the main guests in that program. And she's got a book, Lourdes, Font of Faith, Hope, and Charity, that details the history of St. Bernadette and Lourdes and miracles that happen even today. Welcome back to the show today, Elizabeth Ficcoceli.
Hi there, Michael. It's always a joy to be with you, and on this feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes.
Yeah, it's so great to chat with you with this feast day upon us. And this is one of the big three in my book. We got Fatima, Lourdes, and Guadalupe. These are the three. There are a lot of Marian apparitions throughout history, maybe as many as 2,500 that the church has looked at. But these are the big three that always everybody always talks about as being the ones where people have the biggest devotions and the most interest. And as you have, I've been to Lourdes several times, and it's always an incredible place to visit. And I think when you go, when a person goes, the water of Lourdes is something that always catches people's attention because that is the source of the healing miracles there that are claimed at Lourdes. But I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about the history of the Lourdes miracles. How did this come to be that Lourdes is known as one of these, as perhaps the top place of miracles in the world? When did that all start?
So the water part of the story of Lourdes goes back to the apparitions. Somewhere in the middle of the apparitions is when Our Lady had instructed Bernadette to dig in this mud and to wash her face and eat the weeds that were in this area. And she did not do this to bring about these cures and miracles. She didn't tell Bernadette, you do this and all these miracles are going to happen. What she instructed Bernadette to do was to do this for a reparation for sins in the world. It was an act of penance. So, of course, people observing what Bernadette is doing, some of them were quite aghast. What is this girl doing? But others came back that day to see, what was this? There had to be some reason for this. And that's when they see that right where she had dug that earlier that day, that a bubbling spring was in fact there. And people began to imitate what Bernadette did by drinking and washing in this water. And lo and behold, miracles begin to happen. In 24 hours, documentation of miracles. The first one of a woman with a paralyzed arm, Catherine Latapé. She is cured. There's cures of a dying child, blindness, a person with a crushed leg, that there's bone regeneration. So these are astonishing miracles. Yet Our Lady had never said this was the purpose of the spring. So, I think this is what makes the word get out about Lourdes, that there is this miraculous spring there. And people come there and with great hopes. They come from the local villages, then they come from all over France, eventually Europe, and then the world with the hopes of that water. But I always find it really interesting that it was not an original promise of Our Lady, and yet we still see the miracles happen even to our very day.
Absolutely. And the instruction was to wash in the water versus bathe in the water, but that has been how it's been for years going forward, where they've set up these pools or baths for people to go into. And as you say, miracles still happen even at Lourdes today. And so one of the interesting things is that they have a very strict medical commission there. It's the most, they have the most documentation, they have the most formed process of anywhere in the world for investigating miracles. And often I've talked to different shrines around the world, and they've said, I wish we had something like this here. But it's kind of interesting. How did that actually happen, that these doctors from all over the world weigh in on this, and they have a doctor on staff at the bureau there? How did that all come to be in the first place?
Well, when people began to report miracles, to claim miracles, it was quite exciting, and it almost became commonplace. They would announce these miracles, pardon me, after masses, and you can still see even to this day, people would hang these little placards, these heart-shaped placards, thanking the Virgin for this cure of this miracle, this answered prayer. And so quickly, the local church realizes, well, we need to have some kind of a system, some kind of a format to kind of document that these are miracles that are happening. And so this would lead to the establishment of the original Medical Bureau, a commission that was formed in 1884. It's officially established, and it would consist of a director and doctors that were present there that could carefully document the claims that people were making as a result of coming in contact with that water. And then at the same time, you have Rome, and you mentioned this at the opening of this segment, Michael, that Rome has its own system for documenting miracles that are in association with the canonization process, and they use that Lambertini criteria that you mentioned. So it was Pope Pius X that then gets in touch with the church there at Lourdes and says that the Medical Bureau needs to submit to the same process as the church, so you would have that consistency. And so that's good on one hand. On the other, the challenge was that Lambertini, criteria was already 100 years old, even in the mid-1800s.
Yeah, let's talk about the Lambertini criteria a little bit. I think people will want to know, what are those rules? It's still the official rule book used by Rome for investigating healing miracles. What are some of the criteria that is used there in Lourdes?
Well, you need to establish that there is this medical condition, that there is this problem, and then you need to document how this medical problem has changed. But where some of the problems come in is that it could be no medical intervention, and and so forth, so that it's a complete cure. It's not a recurring thing. It's a complete done. It is cured. Not a gradual thing. And the problem is, as modern medical and science would progress, is that people do go for treatment. They do go for medical regimens so that they can get better, that they can fight these diseases. So that's part, I think, where it got a little sticky. But yet this is still what they're looking at. They're looking at a cure that is a complete, total, has not reversed, that there's no medical explanation. If there's just no natural explanation, that this is a supernatural. It's beyond our understanding how this suddenly stopped and was made better. So it becomes tricky, but this nonetheless was the criteria that the Medical Bureau would have to employ. And so it kind of explains how that while you have thousands and thousands, there's probably around 7,000 remarkable claims of restored physical health that's on file at the Medical Bureau there in Lourdes. But out of all of that, only 70 actually have been authenticated, because it's a long, complicated process. There's a lot of medical documentation. Your time has to pass so that they do see that this cure has been permanent and lasting. And so many cases are just stuck in the process, or maybe it comes down to the bishop. One of the final steps is the person who is claiming this miracle has to go to their bishop and get him to buy in on this, to read the documentation and to sign off on it. And a lot of bishops are either too busy, don't want to get involved in this kind of thing, or maybe they don't actually believe in stuff, because it is private revelation. It's not mandatory that you believe in Lourdes and the miracles associated with Lourdes. So for whatever reasons, these cases are stuck. And so people say, only 70 cases. And it does, that again, of course, is only medical. It's only the medical miracles. It's not talking about psychological healings that can happen over there from addiction and depression and bipolar and so forth. It doesn't talk about the spiritual conversions that happen when people's lives are turned radically upside down. They come back to the Lord. They're changed forever. There's no bureaus over there measuring those miracles, only the physical. So it becomes challenging.
Absolutely. We're talking today with Elizabeth Ficcoceli, author of Lourdes, Font of Faith, Hope, and Charity. You may have seen her appearing in the EWTN special, Miracles of Lourdes. And you mentioned that only 70 out of 7,000 or so cures have been formally recognized. And as you mentioned, the local bishops sometimes, and in some cases, they've actually made the declaration that it's a remarkable cure because they're scared of the word miracle. They don't want to say miracle. So so some cases haven't been added to that list of 70 because of the local bishop, as you mentioned. And also, we've talked about this before, that it's on it's the responsibility of the patient to always come back and get checked up. It's not, they don't send somebody out to the United States or wherever the person is claiming the miracle. You have to go back to Lourdes on your own dime and always be checked up. So it's really, really a tricky thing for any miracles to be found. So when we talk about the history of Lourdes miracles, there hasn't been one in a couple of years now, but the most recent case related to Sister Bernadette Morillo is absolutely fascinating. Tell us a little bit about what happened with Sister Bernadette.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful that these people are alive and can share their stories, and Sister has. But Sister Bernadette Morillo is a religious French sister, and she was a person who had severe problems with her back, a lot of back problems, pain, nerve pain, and it went on for years and years. So a very real and chronic case of a person with a medical condition. At the time that she went on her pilgrimage to Lourdes, she was needing to get around in a wheelchair for mobility. She was on morphine for her pain, so you can see how very afflicted she was. And she went on this pilgrimage to Lourdes. And sometimes people claim they feel something happened when they drink the water or when they're in the baths. In the case of Sister Bernadette, he said it was during the Eucharistic procession, which happens every day during the season of Lourdes, which is like May to October. It's followed by the blessing of the sick. And it was during this time, that blessing of the sick, is where Sister felt a very powerful encounter with the Lord. She felt like the Lord was interiorly instructing her to lift up in prayer all those people that were surrounding her, in their wheelchairs and so forth, to lift them up to the Lord at that moment, and she did. But it was a very powerful spiritual moment. Now, it didn't mean her pain went away or anything changed at that moment. But she went home, still in pain, still had not changed. But she didn't forget that experience with the Lord. It was very powerful. 3 days later, she was praying in her chapel, in her convent. And when she was done, she went back to her room. And there she was inspired to remove her braces off her legs. And lo and behold, she was pain-free and she could walk. And she is still in that condition of being pain-free and able to walk. You can see her now and on videos and so forth. I think she's written a book. And so it is an astonishing, unexplainable case of how could this woman go from that to that in that rapid amount of time, but how can you conclude anything else other than this amazing miracle of our day and age? So it's just wonderful. And she's just charming if you can see her on videos and so forth. She's a beautiful, sweet, humble personality.
Absolutely. And I love the part of the story where after she is her healing she has her healing, she goes on a long 5-kilometer walk to celebrate something that she wasn't able to do before. Absolutely amazing. I think that's an inspiration for a lot of people. And we've been talking today with Elizabeth Ficcoceli, author of Lourdes, Font of Faith, Hope, and Charity. You may have seen her in Miracles of Lourdes on EWTN last year. And for people who want to find out more about your books or your activities, what's the best website or other place, Elizabeth, that people can go and check you out?
Sure. The main website is elizabethficcoceli.com.
Wonderful. Nice and easy. Well, we're so grateful to you joining us, celebrating this feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes. I know for both of us, it's one of our absolute favorites and a great time to talk about miracles. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us on today's program.
All right. Thanks. God bless, Michael.
And that's all the time we have for today's show. If you missed any of this episode or want to catch up on past episodes, you can go to EWTN.com/radio, check out the audio archives, or download the free EWTN app. I'd like to thank our guest today, Elizabeth Ficcoceli, talking to us about Our Lady of Lourdes, and Brian O'Neill talking about his new project, Saints' Tombs. People who want to see my episodes of Explore with the Miracle Hunter can go online on EWTN on demand or tune in on Wednesday, February 11th. My latest episode is going to Assisi. The Italian city of Assisi gave rise to two of history's most celebrated saints. I traveled the trail of St. Francis, the first to bear the stigmata, and St. Clare, his wonder-working follower. Check that one out, Wednesday, February 11th. Explore with the Miracle Hunter, Assisi. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today on Miracle Hunter, where from claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt. Talk to you next week.